Happy. On 45 foot boat.
Controversial things right now.
Get it all in.
That mic won't come on.
You ain't got any good boat jokes.
We've got to work that bigger boat. Yeah, we've got to work that. Hi there, everybody. I think we're live and functioning right now on our live cast, and so anyway, I'm founder and co-founder and president of 45Drives, and you are joining us at our 2023 Creators Summit, and on the subject of storage. And we had a wonderful event. We just wanted to live stream just to share what's happened. And so first of all, let me tell you a little bit about where we are. So we're in a place called Benyon Marina, which is in a place called Cape Breton Island, which is in Nova Scotia, Canada, away in the far east when the old maps where the water fell over the edge of the flat earth. That is where we are right now. And we're on a sailboat called No Restrictions. And so a little bit unorthodox thing to do, but we all like doing unorthodox stuff, right? Creator Summit. Why Creator Summit? We at 45Drives wanted to bring in some people with other perspectives, broad minds, and from a variety of areas, and we wanted to get together and talk storage. And why? We can get a little bit insular as a company. You get a little bit too focused and you lose perspective on the world around you. So we brought in a group of people, and I'm just going to introduce the people right off the bat. Wendell Wilson, level 1 techs. I probably don't have to introduce you guys. Yeah. You guys I'll know you guys. It's fine. Purple striped shirt, Jeff Geerling. Almost. Okay. And then we have J2, Jeff Solium. Okay. And then we have Tim Stewart from Techno Tim, I think is the name we go by. So
Jeff 3 for those.
I will take Jeff 3.
We're going to fight over the Jeff pecking order. Figure that out. We also have with us Tom Lawrence of Tom Lawrence Systems, but he's only here in a virtual sense. We really wish he was here, but he only has a motorcycling problem of some sort.
Yes. I have trouble staying on them.
So, yeah, they work better when you're on top. So,
Yes.
And we have two other people that I'm absolutely thrilled to have here. We have Dave Dickerson from CIQ, and he's representing Rocky Linux, which is a really important part of the Linux side of our 45Drives business. And open source, I think everybody in the audience, you guys are all going to have a connection to open source. We had some wonderful information on the future of open source, in particular enterprise open source, which is really great for me to hear, and I might feel a little better actually having listened to you and the state of things. And then we have Alan Nagel sitting over here with that lovely bright red 45Drives hoodie on. And Alan Nagel is a experienced hard drive engineer, been around the industry forever, and storage hard drives are still and will be an important part of what we do for a long time. This man knows a stunning amount about the magic that happens inside these little boxes that we totally take for granted. And last part of it, I'm going to say, I already said myself. So
To the party, they relegated me up to the bow.
Oh my God, it's Brett!
So I talked a little bit about why I want to have a storage summit, and the idea of the storage summit was just to get here and to really just put our heads up every now and then, stop, look around, think, see what's around you, listen. Us as a company, companies are hugely shaped by the people who are willing to buy things from them. We have a philosophy at 45Drives, and the philosophy is that we make things that are value to people, okay? Unique value to people. There's enough companies around that make Me Too products and then use sales techniques to get a chunk of the market. It's not us. We like to find areas that are underserved and go in there and create something that adds real value. So that's why this perspective, getting that perspective, understanding the marketplace, understanding what's happening out there is so incredibly important to us. And, oh yeah, and it's just a bundle of fun. You bring these people together and depth of knowledge, number one. And number two, and our creators always enjoy dealing with you guys. Why? I know it's just something, there's to be a successful YouTube creator and have an audience, just like us as a company, we have to add value to people because they get to buy voluntarily. Anybody out there in the YouTube world watching technology, if people are not giving insight and entertainment, okay, personality, charm, all that kind of stuff, if you don't have that, they're not watching you, right? You got to have that to be successful. These guys all have that. So, and it just, you add that in, great communicators. Everybody in here is great communicators. So it's been a fun couple of days. I've absolutely enjoyed it. So there's our context. Sitting here in a boat waiting. There's a front blowing in and the wind's blowing up a little bit. And I think we're going to get some rain in a little bit, but it's okay. We're in a catamaran here. We got a roof over our head and we can close that window behind you if we have to. And went for a sail last night too. We had pretty darn good weather for last night's sail. Beautiful. Actually, we've had a beautiful several days. High pressure zone, nice and blue sky and good temperature, good Nova Scotia temperatures. So anyway, here's what I wanted to do. And I'm totally unscripted about this. And I'm just going to think about order in this. What I'm going to do is going to ask all the participants. We wanted to share. Whole purpose of this is to share the insight. We talked about some stuff that I found incredibly interesting, enlightening, eye-opening for us. Going to help us form a direction. We want to share it with you guys and the audience, and so that you can think about this, and hopefully it'll start some discussions and think about the future of storage. We're a highly innovative organization. We can move incredibly fast. We just got to figure out the right directions to go because there's too many of them. What these guys have helped us by what they said and what came out in the discussion. That's what we want to share, and that's the whole purpose of this live cast. So I'm going to just send it around and just get comments about what you guys thought was best. Who wants to start? Everybody's really enthusiastic, wants to put their hand up, and
I'll go.
There we go. Alan Nagel. Here we go. Over to you. So.
Thanks, Doug. Well, first of all, I just want to say thanks to 45Drives for putting this event together, and the entire 45Drives crew has done an amazing job of keeping us entertained, keeping us happy, and letting us relate some content to them, and a very good dialogue back and forth, giving us the opportunity to learn from each other. I've been a big YouTuber for quite a while, not a broadcaster, a watcher, but meeting these guys in person has been an absolute joy. Now I know kind of who they are, where they come from, and I'm going to be a subscriber for life for these guys. They're teaching me a great deal.
Oh, I thought you were talking about...
You know what? Why don't you keep on rolling and tell us like things I'd love to hear from you.
Okay.
What... So you spoke to us in this perspective of this, a deep dive into hard drives themselves. Why don't you share with everybody? And I think, and I want to hear what you heard out of it. But you had so much to say that's really, I think all of us were enlightened and amazed by some of the stuff we heard. And I'm going to share some stuff about where hard drive technology is going, and the debate. Yeah, solid state's going to take it over. The spinning rust is going to be obsolete next year, right?
Sure. Let's go ahead and cover that. So the SSD is actually a complementary technology to the hard drive, not a direct competitor. If you look in any of the cloud or HPC clusters, what you'll find is there's going to be a wave of SSDs that are doing all your I/O speed up, and then there's going to be a whole host of spinning metal in the background. It's not rust. That spinning metal in the background is still relevant. Not only does it give you the mass storage at a much lower cost, but it's also a little bit more power efficient, especially in the higher capacities compared to enterprise-grade SSDs. Today's hard drives go up to 22 terabytes. That's what we're delivering at this point in time through Seagate. We have the opportunity to order customer test units at 24 terabytes at this moment. These are still perpendicular conventional magnetically recorded drives, and at 2.4 terabytes per disk and 10 disks, we're kind of topping out now at 24 terabytes, but this is still very relevant, especially because of the helium fill of these drives. That makes the drives completely insensitive to altitude change. There is no ingress, egress of any form of moisture. The inert helium prevents any form of corrosion from occurring, so there are multiple benefits. The biggest one of all, of course, is power consumption reduction. That allows the drives to run at a lower heat. That means not only can you get more drives into a chassis a little bit denser, but you can actually let the fans run slower. This is very helpful to the drives in terms of keeping the servo positioning on track. So we are moving forward. The hard drive has not been stagnant. There's an awful lot of research and development that's been going on in the background. And Seagate has released for me the opportunity to introduce you to the next generation of drives. First off, we'll talk about areal density. You've probably heard of HAMR before, heat-assisted magnetic recording. HAMR is now quite real. Even though it's been 30 years in development, they actually have a roadmap they're releasing to the public. I have some slides, and I have a couple of YouTube videos. We'll make those available in links below after the live stream, so you can take a look at it a little bit later and check them out. HAMR basically is the incredible technology of creating a disk material that is much higher in coercivity. This means it has a lot of attitude, and it's difficult to flip the bits and establish the polarities needed to write. So we had to do that in order to be able to shrink the bits to the tiny dimension and not have them spontaneously flip and therefore cause erasure of each other. So now we need to come back with something that softens those magnetics so that we can write to it. This is where the laser comes in. So the laser is going to heat a tiny, tiny little nano dot for 1.9 nanoseconds. And even though it's going to heat it up to 800 degrees Fahrenheit, it cools down so rapidly, we really have to use the magnetic transducer and write to that tiny bit absolutely instantaneously. It's an incredible level of technology, and one of the videos we'll post will give you a much closer look at this. The roadmap that's been approved for me to discuss, and we'll post some slides on it there, it starts at 32 terabyte. It'll go 32, 34, 40, and believe it or not, in less than 5 years, we're going to have a 50 terabyte, 3.5 inch conventional HAMR recorded hard drive. I think that's pretty exciting, and it's going to keep hard drives relevant for a long, long time. We've got...
You mentioned one thing there, Alan.
Yeah.
You said that they're not spitting rust, but I got to tell you, you've never been to Cape Breton. We're on the Atlantic Ocean here. Leave the drives out for a couple of days. We'll give you some rust.
Those platters are glass, though, aren't they? No.
Yeah. Well, the platters are now glass. That's true, Doug. But the coating on the outside is still quite metallic.
Too bad.
Yes. There's a couple of other features coming out with hard drives that I was allowed to begin to discuss. One of these, they're referring to it on the Seagate side at least, they're referring to it as regen. I think the best way to describe it, and again, we'll release some slides, you can get a little bit more information, but starting with the Core Vault product, they figured out a new way to kind of use RAID parity to help the drive heal itself on the fly should it need to do this. Now, we've always had system tracks and the ability to reallocate sectors, but we're going past that now. Now we're going to utilize the variable bit per inch density in combination with the variable track per inch density in combination with the ability to optimize the fly height of each individual head. All of this is done in certification testing today. We're going to combine that with the ability to move more than just a few sectors at a time or more than a few tracks at a time. And when regen becomes mature, drives will actually be able to, if needed, retire an entire head or an entire surface within the drive and reallocate all that data dynamically somewhere else in that drive. And this basically means the drive has the opportunity to ignore an actual hard error that occurred, recover the data, reallocate it, shut off a surface, and remain in service. I think that's a pretty exciting idea. The last thing I'll talk about real quick is what they're going to refer to as variable capacity. Essentially, they've already been doing something called waterfalling for decades. This basically means they'll put a max number of heads and disks in a given platform. As thousands of drives go into certification test and spend their time in there, they're optimizing all the sectors across all the zones on all the surfaces. There's a great deal of work that goes on in certification testing. One of the things that's going to happen now is instead of trying to hit exactly 20 terabytes or shut off a whole disk and hit exactly 18, if we could get 18.972 approximately, that would be better than selling you an 18. Also, with the new modern file system and different storage and clustering capabilities, you don't have to have fixed increments of hard drive space anymore in order to address the format. So especially in the cloud environment first, getting drives that have a variable capacity but not necessarily fixed in specific increments can be an attractive way for the hard drive makers to get a little bit more efficient and reduce their scrap cost.
Cool. Thank you very much. Really, really appreciate it. And it was cool slides, hammer technology, that whole thing. You know, that was my big thing. Is I was wondering about hard drives. And again, I didn't see them obsoleting for a long, long time myself, but I always wondered where that next opening was. You know, the roads, innovation roads, kind of been closing up. You know, you jammed everything you can possibly jam into that space, and you go, how does it work next? Okay, hammer. Use a laser. 800 degrees Celsius per nanosecond. Cool. Love it. Oh. Okay, thank you very much, Alan.
You bet, Doug, and thanks again for the opportunity to be here.
Okay, Dave, I go next. So let me introduce. So with again with Dave representing Rocky Linux. A few years ago, CentOS disappeared on us. Enterprise Linux, and I think Brett Kelly said at one point. I said the moment he read that text, it was a little touch upsetting. You know, you hit your wagon to our distros, and one of the things in open source when you look at it and you know, I don't know, some sort of evil empire takes something over and decides to yank the carpet out from under us, it can really stir us up. So along comes Rocky Linux. We've been a supporter of it from day one. And anyway, I love the cooperation model, how human beings cooperate in open source. I think it's magic. I think it's way more in society to come off that model. But in the short term, in the focus, Rocky Linux is incredibly important to us. So tell us a little bit about Rocky Linux future.
Yeah, so you know, so first off, I'm from CIQ, and CIQ is one of the founding sponsors of Rocky Linux, and if anybody's been paying attention to what's been going on over the last couple months, it's been kind of crazy, right? It went from we've got this, well, go back a couple years, we've got this fantastic operating system that's lock solid that can be ran in production environments, or I'm just learning Linux, I'm just getting into the world, and I need something that I can use and practice and play with. And both of them cost you absolutely nothing. You could develop off of it. Again, you could research with it. You could deploy it in a production environment. And when that went away, you know, that caused a lot of questions. Well, in that
Speaking of CentOS,
yes. Speaking of CentOS, not Rocky Linux. Rocky Linux now being part of the RESF, the Rocky Enterprise Software Foundation. You know, that continues on that goal to have a community-driven, community-controlled enterprise Linux that can be trusted and deployed inside of a secure, stable environment in production for production purposes, for research, for whatever that use case might be. What's happened now in the last couple weeks, last couple months, with source codes being closed down or put behind potential walls, however you want to describe it. I'm not here to get in the middle of that. CIQ's gone and worked with Oracle and SUSE to open up the Open ELA or Open Enterprise Linux Association. And the goal there is to be able to have all of these, have a single open, truly community-owned open source space for all of the sources in order to develop and build, and then your distros can come out of that. So the potential for Oracle Linux and Rocky Linux and Liberty Linux and, you know, anybody else that may want to join it, whether that be Alma or if somebody wants to go build their own distro out of it, there's now a central place with all of that source code to have that available. So those who want to tinker, want to develop, want to do whatever they want, get their hands on fantastic hardware. So you talk about 45Drives and the value that you all bring to your customers in having a fantastic, solid solution, and then it's open and you can build off of it with whatever you want. Rocky can be that base, or it's something that comes out of Open ELA can be that base as well.
And the strength in numbers, eh? It's when you see one organization take control of an open source project, and that's when the bad things can happen. And you spoke of RESF. And its fundamental nature of trying to set it up such that we don't run into, our odds of running into tears down the road.
The bylaws have been written to where no one company can completely control the Rocky Enterprise Software Foundation. So Rocky can live today as the community wants it to be. Rocky tomorrow can mold and develop into something that the community wants it to be. And after that, if the community no longer wants Rocky, then the community no longer wants Rocky. But that's the community's decision, not a single person, not a single company's choice to do so.
Heartwarming. Really is. I can tell you, we have lots of consternation over the years, and the stability thing. So I love it. Any move that builds stability. So.
Yeah, perfect.
Anyway, thank you very much. Over to Tim Stewart. No, we have multiple microphones, but not enough here. So musical microphones.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Good to see you. Thanks for the opportunity. It was wonderful meeting not only 45 Drives, but everyone here. I've looked up to these folks throughout the years, and I blame a lot of you for the huge server rack in my basement and all the other things. My disk shelf. Wendell was one of the first person I saw gifting those to other people or helping people build larger storage arrays. So yeah, this opportunity has been unforgettable so far. So I appreciate it. I think so one thing. Well, there's a lot of things I took away from this, but I came here with the lens of the perspective of doing something that I think traditional 45 drive systems weren't built to do. With their motto of big, strong, and fast, I tried to take this enterprise system and put it in my house. Not something that I think a lot of people maybe have done in the past. I think a handful of people on YouTube have, but even then, I think they're in offices and things like that. So for me, it was putting it in my basement, and I ran into a lot of unique challenges that maybe 45 Drives wasn't aware of. They probably were, but I was using a system as it wasn't designed to be, and that was in my home, and running inside of a room in my house, and so. I shared a lot of my experiences, some challenges I ran into, some things that went well, some things that didn't go so well, and I was humbled by your guys' response. I know that you have a home lab system maybe coming out soon, and we got to see it. So the HL15 I think is going to address some of that. But I've talked about the most things that I hear. A lot of people in my channel or in Discord talking about, which is it's either power, noise, or heat, and so those things I think are being addressed, and I was able to address them on my own. I also threw in RGB. We'll see. I don't know. All right, I get a lot of head shaking, but we'll see. I threw RGB out there. It does have utility. I always feel like I need qualifiers when I talk about RGB, but it does have some utility, and it helps me see inside the case. But a couple of things that I noticed and realized, and that I appreciate while we were there. The company as a whole, I felt like took everything we said to heart, and it wasn't just taking notes, and it wasn't just we'll get back to you on that. When I talked about some of my challenges about throwing in 4 extra SSDs into my case and the challenges I had with that, I think all the engineers' eyes lit up, and then a day later they had a solution in my hand, 3D printed, and said, here.
12 hours later.
Yeah, 12 hours later. They actually had solutions already, but they made a custom solution with a custom CAD, and within 12 hours, and had it in my hand. And having a company look at your feedback, take it into heart and consideration, and then also having the talent and the ability to do that and turn that around and have a solution for you were just incredible. So I think Mark worked on that, and a lot of other people here did too, and Brett, and it was just incredible. And so this has just been like incredible all around. I think I've been to many conferences of different types, and this was more just like a meeting of the minds, and just being able to get to know everyone has just been it's been awesome for me.
Thank you. Really appreciate those comments. Love the insight you gave us. You spoke very, very well on the way you put it, your spouse's feedback in a home lab situation, I guess the best way to describe it, and how your kids veto industrial scale fans going around and the like. So really, really appreciate that. And that whole usability perspective as we move into the home lab side of it is going to be incredibly helpful to us. Yeah. Move along to Jeff. J1 or J2?
It was established on the first Zoom call with all of us before this all started. I'm Jeff, and this is other Jeff.
didn't establish that.
You weren't at the meeting. I'm Crafty Jeff. This is Jeffy G. That's right. Okay. Jazzy, yeah, Jazzy Jeff. Anyway, there we go.
There's that trademark sound.
That's how he begins a video right there.
Now I can talk. All right. Anyway, it's been said already. I just want to echo the sentiment. Thank you guys so much for the opportunity to come out here, to meet all of you. And like Tim said, this really hasn't been a presentation from you guys on why we should be endorsing 45 Drives or recommending it to our viewers or anything like that. This has genuinely been a, here's the products we have right now, here's our ideas. What do you guys see use cases, though? What do you guys see market directions going? What do you think we should focus on? And not only, like Tim said, making notes on that, but already having some follow-up discussions with those on the team about some possibilities and, hey, maybe let's tweak this idea and see how it goes. That has been an absolutely incredible experience, so thank you for that. My week so far, I've definitely got some highlights. As an old guy who worked in manufacturing a little bit, touring your sister company, Protocase, and going through the manufacturing line, not only going through, but getting a hand at welding, getting a hand to use a laser welder in your facility. That was absolutely incredible. I apologize to my wife, but I'm going to probably be coming home with one of those in about a month or so now. But like I said, the meeting of these minds and all of our different perspectives on home labs, like we all cover home labs, and when you guys originally approached us, you said, hey, we want all of the creators to give a presentation on something you want to talk about that 45 Drives might be involved in, or maybe a direction we need to look at. And all of us went, well, home lab, obviously. And so we had to have a follow-up email about, well, Wendell said home lab, and Jeff said home lab, and Jeff said home. What specifically are we going to look at? I chose to come from the perspective of you guys are entering the home lab market, but is it aiming at the right position to give it the right name? Is home lab the right word for your AV15? Is everyone crazy enough to have a rack in their home? This might be the wrong group to ask that question to, but what about the people that aren't that crazy that still run home labs for various reasons? And I don't want to take any thunder away from any future announcements, but I presented a couple ideas of, hey, you can modify some existing products that you have right now if you ignore the rack mount form factor. You scale it down a little bit, and you could very easily enter a price competitive market with some NAS appliances. And given the market of NAS appliances right now, let's just say they're hot garbage. And I think 45 Drives is well positioned to enter that market. And I know you guys hate this word, but be disruptive with a lot of that home lab stuff. And the other thing to consider is with home lab level equipment, it goes hand in hand with small, medium business equipment. Those are the same things that are deployed into doctors' offices and real estate offices and small schools and retail establishments. And they don't have rack mount stuff either. They don't have the space for it. They don't have the noise capacity for it. And so maybe trying to focus that home lab product lineup on a broader audience without the preconceived notions of what a home lab should be from Reddit or Twitter and all the people who want petabytes of storage in their house.
Yeah, and it was really cool. I love some real insight. Again, trying to find what's not there. Again, to come up with a Me Too product, and we could engage a offshore manufacturer and get a cheap plastic box made for less than the others that does the same thing. And I don't think we contribute anything to the world by doing that. We take our big, strong, fast, okay, and everything that we're about, which is open. You buy it, it's yours. It's got to be usable. It's got to be repairable. It's screws, not rivets. And how do we build that? And but how do we optimize it? Because we do that in enterprise. And we, one of the reasons we wanted you guys in this conversation, well, the whole community, is we get colored by enterprise. We make these big beasts, our new NVMe server, 32 drive NVMe server, 16 million IOPS, 64 gigabytes per second.
They said I couldn't take one home in my luggage. I was.
I think the
weight limit might be a little.
and it's fun. And these go in. It's that word enterprise. I kind of hate the word enterprise because it's so ill-defined. But these go in all sorts of industrial scale applications, right? And large clustering of 60 drive units and everything else, and big compute in them. Yeah. And how do you get down to home labs? Like that's the question. How do you get there, and how do you get to price point? Because again, that perspective of spouse, when you come home and say, "Yeah, I spent $15,000, but you should see the computer I got." Divorce lawyers are expensive too, I guess. So, trying to figure it out. Anyway, some great ideas, but and where we are is, how do you build big, strong, fast, and how do you and what's fast mean? It means that it can run everything you want to run in home labs, which we got some more comments going to come with that. Anyway, hugely enlightening to us. So thank you very much.
Thank you,
Jeff. One or two.
Other Jeff.
I'll Jeffy G. That's what Patrick from Serve the Home calls me. So we'll stick with that. No, I was excited to come here. It was over a year that I was trying to work on this petabyte Raspberry Pi project. I like doing really dumb things, but every time I do something dumb, I learn something cool from it, and that's why Red Shirt Jeff and I collab on those things. Plot twist, he's actually me, but anyway, it's on this project we learned so much about limitations of ARM, and not just Raspberry Pi, but ARM as a platform. We learned about some of the power efficiency things. What I took away from it is we're reaching a point where low power devices can do things that are like hyperscale, and it's an interesting thing. So thinking about home lab applications, thinking about power consumption, thinking about, we're on a boat right now. If you wanted to run a cluster with a server and with extra storage and all that kind of stuff, you could do that on battery or solar power much easier when you do that low power system. And seeing the direction the industry has moved with more cores that are lower power in a rack, and you always need storage with it. So I just love making my little experiments with storage with Raspberry Pis often, but with other ARM devices. And I don't know, I love looking forward to that. And the thing that I spoke with the group here about mostly was the relationships that 45Drives has with creators, because coming to the Petabyte Pi project, as you mentioned earlier, we have to get eyeballs. Like that's, businesses make revenue. We need people to watch. So we need personality. We need a hook. We need interesting things. I mean, luckily with tech, there's always something interesting. And, 45Drives, I looked at the history of all the collaborations they've done, and seeing like the evolution of the Storinator over the years and how that evolved into the different lines has been really enlightening, interesting, and also seeing the relationship change. The thing that really drew me in, though, was on my project, I'm pretty sure on all of your projects, there's a hugely collaborative atmosphere, and something that I see a lot in the open source world, but you don't see from a lot of vendors.
Yeah.
Where you'll take our feedback, and like Jeff said, a few days later or hours later, there's like something. There's a physical thing that comes out of that feedback, whether it's a modification to a Storinator, or I'm flying home with a new backplate so that I can silence down my XL60 because I want to get that thing down from 76 decibels to maybe 40 or 50 decibels. I can do that. There's always a solution. And as creators, it's great to work with a company that cares, that seems to actually have relationships with customers, where there's a feedback loop, and it's not just you talk into a wall. And I don't know, coming into this, I was like, it's kind of weird going to a storage vendor's place and having a summit. Usually summits are a little more, open. But when we got here, we realized this is open. This is a community thing. 45Drives and ProtoCase also just are, it seems to be very, very community driven. Your products are based on customer feedback. We also talked about the idea of having a high-speed flash portable but ruggedized enclosure for things like video production. That's something that could happen someday. There's all these things, but also for me, my personal favorite thing I saw was in person. I got to touch and hold the Stornator Jr. It's my favorite product that 45 Drives has ever made, even though it's the most impractical thing ever. But, you know, technology moves on, and maybe we'll get there.
I think it was one of our most fun projects. Yeah. It was a blast.
They also told Jeff he couldn't take that home in his luggage either.
I tried.
Anyway, and interesting, that whole thing of you know, distributed what? Distributed compute or storage, but you know, there's computing attached to it, and how do you make it robust? How do you make it low power? How do you make it incredibly reliable? It's a thread we want to go down, and so yeah, we'll be doing lots of that in the future too. Good. Thank you, Wendell. So,
how's it going? This was really interesting from my perspective because I always like to look at how people are using ZFS in the enterprise and customers and all this other kind of stuff. And there's also a lot of experience that we have from the forum for home users using ZFS or power users, because it's like we're talking about these like they're home users, but they're not ordinary people. They're us.
They're people like us.
Yeah, but eventually, probably we would get people that, you know, there is probably a path to productizing that. If you look at the world around us today, you know, you look at the meltdown in Twitter, and it's like, oh, we need to decentralize services, and we need to whatever, and you know, we don't want cloud providers to be able to take things away from us. And it's like, well, guess what? You can build your own storage appliance just like we all have, deploy your own stuff, and 45 Drives has positioned itself to be able to answer those kind of needs. And it's like, oh, you could do that with a home NAS. Well, no, you can't. Not what we're planning, because there's just not enough there's not enough horsepower and flexibility there to be able to do that. So you look at the software component, and you look at even things like high availability. It's like high availability in a home scenario is nice. Your kids want to be able to watch Plex. You know, we were talking about all this earlier, and it's like, oh, I took that down for maintenance. Why is everybody in the house freaking out? Oh, right. The entire rest of the house depends on that being up. Oh, the solution is obviously to add more complexity and turn it into a cluster. I mean, not really, but then really you start taking it apart, and then, you know, Jeff pops up and says, oh, well, you know, Ansible, and we can sort of reduce this to a thing. And, you know, Nextcloud was really never really designed to be highly available, but we could probably shortcut this and do some Kubernetes magic. And then, okay, now it's push button in a way that took weeks of development to get it set up, but the regular unwashed users can deploy that and have something that's highly available and have it be really nice. This is how we got the Linux kernel. This same process. It's just that now we have layers and layers and layers of complexity from a whole bunch of other different stuff, and this is, you know, kind of the hardware platform and software ecosystem to drive that, because it's on the enterprise side, and the lessons learned from the enterprise do actually apply for home users. You just have to abstract it away from them. So, and if you want to go off the rails like we do and modify it, you can. So what's not to love?
So I do want to really quick add to that, because, you know, after hearing everybody talk about this, as an individual who wants to be more of a tinkerer and wants to put these things together, and has also seen the lockdown environment that exists inside of a lot of home NAS products, I'm looking forward to whenever this Home Labs product wants to come out, whatever it's going to be called, like ordering one, building it out, and starting to figure this out, because this has actually been super inspirational from my own standpoint to go and move to that of, I don't have to rely on all of these services, and if something's no longer available, something shuts down, it doesn't matter to me.
My mom has got this set up that I've been sort of talking about a little bit. Eventually I'll do a video on it, but it's got Dragnet and Green Acres and Dick Van Dyke Show and I Love Lucy, and like you can't even find most of those on a streaming service anymore. But it's easier to use than Netflix. There's no commercials. There's not even the Netflix logo. It's to the point where I'm annoyed that when I'm on Netflix and I watch something and it's like brr, and then you get the Netflix logo. It's like, why you're wasting 3 seconds of my time? Stop this. Stop it. And you can fix that with your own stuff, and it can be an appliance-like experience. And but our mind's in the gutter with media. Forget about media. Think about home automation. Think about home security. Think about AI. You can have something more sophisticated than Ring doorbell. Look at how quick AI stuff is. You have your own AI assistant that literally runs your house. Your AI assistant can be like, hey, by the way, did you change the air conditioner filter? Because I didn't see you change the air conditioner filter on the closed circuit TV, and it's time to change the air conditioner filter. You need some maintenance on this, or I could call somebody to do it if you want to do that. You want to approve that, and then there's a whole vertical there. That's how Amazon intends to make money with this. They're just not moving very fast in terms of having their smart assistant ask you to buy stuff and smart reorder and subscribe and save. But if you take control of that yourself, you're going to be in a lot better position financially. It's just this, we're still probably 2 or 3 years out from the software from that. But what powers that is local storage.
Yeah, it's fascinating. You spoke and brought up, and everybody discussed the whole thing of there's a sort of anybody who's wise should have a lack of trust of cloud. Yeah, just put all your data there. Trust me, it's going to be good. Oh no, it's secure. It's in the cloud. And there's so many examples of loss of data and certainly loss of service. Some of the things I actually don't like about software as a service is this constant change that's pushed on you, and
you're a little hostage because when they change the rates, it's like, what are you going to do? Move it?
They changed the rates. The other thing, our organization, which we're about 400 people now, you get 400 people, and then next thing you know, Microsoft pushes through an update, and it changes something in the way something happens, and we got to run around, spend a whole bunch of money, loss of productivity time, loss of time in workstations, and for what? Because Microsoft want to change something. Now, we all love change. Sorry, we're tech geeks. We like change. Not everybody loves change. And you go, but it's gotta be our change. Saying Brett Kelly from off camera there, and taking control of the change. Yeah, when you own its appliance, if you don't want it to change, you leave it. You don't update it, and you're responsible for your data integrity, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
But that's talk about high availability, redundancy. Clustering for everyone was a thread we talked about, and we do that in enterprise. Yeah. On the enterprise side, we've really brought clustering from being something exotic down to, we say clustering will cost you about 10% more than a single standalone server, or than a standalone server strategy. And I look at that and I go, small devices, home setting, clustering. Yeah. Always up, no kids yelling at you.
Yeah.
Headaches dropping down. It's got layers of complexity, but we're making those so much simpler all the time inside on the enterprise level, and that's going to cross right over into the home side of it.
Yeah, the scale at which 45 Drives is operating for enterprise customers is bringing forward the state of the art for things like ZFS. And so because ZFS is huge. It's $1 billion file system. ZFS literally is probably the file system they would use on the Starship Enterprise. And it's got overhead, and it's got stuff that is not perfect. And your NVMe product, you're bumping up against the limitations of the software architecture because everything else is caught up. But the fact that that's now a commodity, and I mean that in the best possible way, mean that we can get those in the hands of ZFS developers, and they're worldwide, and they're common in the enterprise, and those problems go away.
So, and one of the other things, coming out of that thread of discussion, and we had inklings of this, but, on our home lab side of it, what we're going to try to become, we're going to put this out there and hope people join us in this, that whole idea of application level of Nextcloud, how you do it better, how you do it in that environment, media servers, you name it. How do we do that? How do we make it easy? I got a problem that, I'm out of data in my hands-on technology. I've atrophied over the years, but I got something, my Ubuntu storage server at home, I really wish that I could figure out how to set it up so that my my Samsung, when I walk in there, that my photos and everything else are backed up there.
Yep.
Because I got too much and I don't feel like paying anybody else for a cloud that I don't trust.
Yeah.
And I'm going, well, how do we make that really easy? And make it easy in an open 45 Drives, open source community kind of way, which is the stuff's in there. It's not proprietary. It's not licensed, and it's not our way or the highway, but rather here's an easy way to push a couple of buttons and get something come up, and then knock yourself out on making what you want out of it. That's really looking forward to seeing if we can become a hub for a bit of that.
I've got custom software that runs on this. I want to run Docker. No, I'm sorry. You can't.
That was one of the other things that I brought up when I was challenging 45 Drives on. If you're entering the home lab SMB, also business space. It's not just about delivering the hardware and saying, here, it's all yours now. As much as you want to be a tinkerer, are you going to sit there and program all of those automations and everything else? Or do you want a NAS appliance-like interface to be able to say, you know what, I want to set up a high availability, or I want my storage to do this, or I want my phone photos automatically when I walk through my door and it's on my home Wi-Fi to start backing them up? I challenge 45Drives to say your Houston UI needs to be just as good as Synology, just as good as QNAP with all of the other services, and as open source as you want, and you can use it or you cannot, but it has to be in place.
Yeah, no, I love it. Houston, a good example. Yeah, and and coming from where we're an enterprise and people who have pretty solid expertise and use it as a GUI to aid with what they're doing, it works really well for that. And you can just see the potential for it, though, to just make it a whole lot easier and to have a thread in there where you can go from, basically push a button and get something done in a best practice way, but then to be all the way through to be able to customize through it. And then ultimately, and the nice thing that Houston does, and totally in our philosophy, is that command line is the ultimate power. Yeah. And to make it play with command line, that's what Houston does really, really well, is it plays with command line. So yeah, how do we take that down into the home labs and make it, so an old guy dummy like me.
So someone like Dave can go point and click and be done.
Yeah.
To be fair, I didn't ask for everything to be done in a super. But give me a recipe. Give me a step by step, and I'll go find everything. Would it make my life easier if everything's there in a closed down ecosystem? Yes, but then it's now potentially closed down, and also probably more expensive. Give me some choice and give me a playbook.
Yes.
So that's it. So that's what that evolution of our home labs play, which is gonna have to address small business as well.
Yeah.
And it's got that usability thing. We do that in enterprise, right? It's one of the things we do really well in enterprise. We're probably one of the only vendors. We have hardware and software under the same open under the same platform, so nobody points fingers at each other. And then on the team that Mitch works on, you guys get a customer and I can't get a client working. I'm sorry, that's your client problem. No. We help, and realizing that our customers have to be able to read and write data from their applications, on the enterprise side, and we got to take that. It's in our DNA not to strand people and say, well, that's your problem. I'm sorry you bought it. And we did what we did. We got to help you make it work, and within reason. Within commercial, all the constraints that come from commercial, and the fact that all our people like to get a paycheck, and we should be a profitable company. If we're not, we're going to close. So we put those constraints on, and then how do we do it in a nice, fair, open, positive way? So we got a lot of ideas about it, and we're moving pretty fast on it. And man, this has ever helped us.
Yeah, and one thing that when we were having some of the discussions, one of the things I picked up on, and I mentioned this in the 45 Drives and Creator thing. Every time I see in Reddit's home lab community or elsewhere, somebody's like, look at what I found on Facebook Marketplace. I found one of these old chassis from Backblaze, or an old 45 Drive, some business was selling it. The cool thing is, even a 10-year-old chassis, you can still upgrade it. It uses standards, and that's another thing that really, for me, attracts me to you guys, is that you use standards and you help make the standards. There's ZFS, there's Houston, and you contribute back. And that was, to your point with CIQ and OpenELA, that's really something that I think a lot of companies, they have a tunnel vision on what they want to get done. And you mentioned coming into this live stream, like that's part of your reason for this whole summit. And that's why I think that's my favorite thing about this whole general thing, is I didn't know what to expect coming into it, but coming out of it, I see like you guys want to be in that community. You want to make the community. And I don't think a lot of companies understand that aspect of it.
I had a question I wanted to ask Tom. Tom Lawrence. Wendell
Hi, Tom.
Hi, Tom. Are you down there, Tom?
I'm here.
Wendell brought something up a little bit ago that I find a little bit inspiring. He's mentioning that there isn't really a reason to stick with streaming all the time anymore. You can build an appliance now. The home lab notion can be used in so many different ways, especially when you've got a high amount of processing power and a high amount of storage. So the question that I wanted to ask you was, do you see in the near future somebody moving forward to allow you to integrate more and more security applications? We know that if we can isolate the server, we can be without ransomware threats. We know that our doorbells, video doorbells, are already not secure. When are we going to be able to have a simple system? We have simple file systems already, like Rocky Linux. When are we going to have an application level that can start to tie in things like home media server with security cameras, with perhaps even enthusiast level AI, so we can do things like engraving and laser cutting and art generation all off of one home appliance like the Home Lab?
Oh, it's definitely coming, and I'll actually, on that security camera one, I'll even kind of gesture towards Techno Tim. He's got a great video he already did on that particular topic for doing integrations. It's actually really cool. I just think it's really interesting because the media stuff, being able to own it, and I love that Wendell brought up Green Acres. Now that song's in my head, you know, when I was a kid, I always listen. Green Acres is the place to be.
Land spreading out so far and wide.
Exactly. I grew up on a farm, so it was, you know, really relatable here. But back to the topic, we're slowly getting there, and one of the things that glues a lot of it together that I've been a big fan of, huge open source community, lots of good support, has been the Home Assistant. It's been kind of a nice central place to tie in all these other things like my security cameras and not have to have any dependency on external things. And then we also have, and once again, I'll just share Tim because I think he's the one that turned me onto it and he did his video on it, would be Frigate, is another way so you can do some object recognition. And once again, keeping this all local to yourself, tunable, customizable, and allowing you, the person with the media, not to have to worry about, will this end up somewhere else? Will this end up, you know, on some Amazon servers? Will my personal, you know, I have cameras around my house, but they're my cameras being recorded internally. They're not on the cloud somewhere for someone else to access. And I like that concept. And I preach a lot of that myself, as everyone in this whole live stream does, about kind of, I call it data sovereignty. It's like your data, you should own it. You should be able to possess it, and you need a place to store it, and you should be the one maintaining control over it. Yeah.
No, that's Tesla.
Yeah, that is. Them too.
Quick comment. Yeah, I agree with Tom on both having open source solutions to do a lot of this stuff. Home Assistant is a huge interface into almost everything. The video I did was the one unscripted, which is it kind of opens up all of these closed camera systems to other either Home Assistants or Home Hubs, or even to other systems like Frigate, which is another system that does, you know, open source home security, and then they open up and allow you to do object detection with another system. So that's one thing I really enjoy about open source, is all the interoperability between those systems too. So it's pretty awesome. Everyone's like standing on the shoulders of giants, building things that work with each other, and it's fantastic. So is there one that does it all? No. But are there three you can put together the way you want and have all of your data local? Yes.
So there's more available than I know of already.
Yeah.
So, Tom, I have yourself, and I got two more people to get to. Tom, what else other insight can you share, and some of your wisdom and insight? Oh.
You know, to go touch a little on, like Wendell said there, and Wendell and me and him have chatted many times, and he's talked about this on his channel. Like, we both believe that people really should be considering this about media ownership and thinking about your data, because what you realize very quickly is you're just renting it most of the time. Even though you're like, you pay the subscriptions, your favorite series, and maybe you get halfway through your series and all of a sudden it's gone. You're like, but I pay a subscription. Well, yeah, they had a licensing problem, so it went over to some other subscription service that they're hoping to drag you along with them. I like to go back to the idea that, you know, if we buy games, if we buy media, that I can watch that media, consume it at any time I want. I think that's a really important thing. This is where we're really getting to. Is we had a discussion when I was in your creators meeting. We went deep diving into Ceph and enterprise storage, but it's also come so far the other way that Ceph and enterprise storage is pretty accessible. I mean, ZFS is really accessible in the home lab. There's appliances for it. Just loading up Rocky Linux on a 45Drives box and throw in Houston UI on there, you can really build a custom system in your home lab, or even just on your own hardware. And then go the next level of, hey, what about that redundancy? What about that? Hey, everyone kind of expects these servers to be up and running. I think we're really, with all this open source and clustered storage, on that edge where it's really accessible for the home user. There's a lot of passionate creators like us, and we're really, I run the Home Lab show. I realize we have like over 107 episodes, and the more I've engaged with the Home Lab community, I don't feel as much like an outlier having a rack of stuff at my house, like all of you. Like, there's a big community. There's a very passionate community, and we're all dedicated to helping each other. A lot of us are dedicated to, sharing this knowledge. And there's real world enterprise applications so we can make money at our day jobs and then bring that same knowledge home, share it with all of the audiences on things like YouTube. It's been an easy way to do it, and get more people, building these at home. We already know the price of the cloud goes one direction, up. There was a recent report my friend McBain did over at Canalysys, and they said 70% of companies over the next year plan to pull data out of the cloud. They are putting it back. We're seeing this trend, and I think we're going to see it for home users too. They're just realizing it's an expensive place to rent things that may go away, even though you're paying all these high fees, because things change, companies get bought, mergers happen, and your data is just some object that they may or may want to keep, depending on how much they can squeeze out of you. So I'm excited to see, like, all of us and all the community that's been engaging in all this home lab stuff to really see all this storage and everything expand. Kind of comes back to the the excitement, and I see in the chat room, I keep looking over at it because people are like, hey, when's 45Drives going to have a the home lab servers? I think it's an awesome direction that you guys are going in, because the communities, we're ready for it.
So, it's interesting that, there's a reason why, cloud storage companies are the darlings of Wall Street, and it's called margin, right? And it's, it's worked. They've been able to keep prices up. And just a little teaser, we got some material coming out soon. Just did a little study of cloud storage. We said, okay, petabyte, we picked a petabyte, and said, what would it cost you to store a petabyte of data, to store, and some different cases for using the data on cloud, versus buying the alternative to cloud would be to have a cluster, new enterprise cluster from 45Drives, that you had full warranty and service contract for that. Anyway, let me tease you with the numbers. 750,000 for very cold storage. And this, the big cloud guys. I didn't put Backblaze, our friends at Backblaze, in there. They'd be lots less than that. But the majors, 750,000 up to 3.5 million to store your petabyte for 5 years. The new enterprise, fully loaded, 5 years, service contract, 100,000. It's such a dramatic difference. Oh yeah, you have complete access to your data, and you don't have this speed throttling, having to go through the internet and everything else. You got security and whatever else. Anyway, it's really interesting. So dramatic, that cost thing. It's not a little bit. It's just crazy, the differential in it. When your data gets big, it just makes a huge amount of sense. Yeah, and the other thing, we were a discussion, Tom, that came up when you were talking building a cluster. We had a good discussion about cluster, of whether cluster is ready yet. Yeah, comments on that. Yeah, any comments on, is it prime time ready? I think was really the discussion, and for your IT business and where it goes, and where are you in that? Want to share your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, I was asking a lot of the hard questions. I was throwing the curveballs. I wanted to see where some of this landed in usability and upgrade. And boy, I would say 45Drives is at the cutting edge of this for sure. And it's become so much simpler. It's definitely something you're going to see more of on my channel. People have been asking me to cover it, but I haven't really, I know it from a very high level, and watching a lot of the 45Drives videos. So bypass me, just go right to the 45Drives. So you guys have dove deep on a lot of the Ceph stuff, but it's becoming more accessible. It's becoming like a very stable, much like ZFS. Once it comes stable, predictable, you have like the Houston UI, you have ways to deploy it. There's more scripting around it to make it more automated, which is, that's going to be helpful to the home users. They're not specializing in storage, but they want accessibility to it. So I think, yeah, absolutely. Ceph is probably the biggest feature we're going to see in the clustered storage, because we can't just have a petabyte. We need several machines. And like you'd said earlier, it's only about a 10% cost difference to split it up between a few machines and cluster them together.
Anyway, thanks for those comments. And Tom, careful your motorcycling from here on in, eh?
Yes.
Tom's going to come down, I think, a little bit later in the fall, and make sure you get down before all sailing season is still here and all that kind of stuff. Okay, I got 2 more people to comment. We have Mitch Hall sitting here, who's always just sitting there, always eager to, he's like biting his tongue because he can't shut up. No. Okay. Pot calling a kettle black.
Yeah, right. I wasn't gonna say, but I want to keep my job and everything. So, leading up to this summit, I just kept thinking about how surreal it was to me because I'm a YouTube junkie. I've been watching YouTube. Like I consume so much more YouTube than I do just any other content, and so these creators I've been watching for years. Wendell I've been watching for the better part of a decade, since the Tech Syndicate days, and so it's just been surreal, right? I literally weekly watch every single one of you guys, so that was amazing to me, and I was just so excited for that. But coming into the summit and really, gauging of what I really wanted to get from it, the word that kept kind of being in my head was being a sponge, right? So me and my team as an architect, our role is to deliver the best solutions for our customers that meets their needs exactly. And so I just wanted to, be able to soak up as much as I possibly could from these guys. And so during the conversations, so many things really, really hit home to me. One of the ones, joking but not really, is talking about hard drives, right? I consider myself a pretty technical guy and know a lot about this stuff, but when you get into the low level details about hard drives, it might as well just be pure magic at that point for me. So it's just
Alan made us all feel like idiots.
And so that was really unique.
Not on purpose.
But beyond that as well, like so many things. So one thing that was really interesting when we think about the home lab, thinking about the ecosystem that comes with it, right? And something that Jeff mentioned, it's like, we got to be polished for these home labs that aren't the power users and things like that. And excuse me. What I think I got from Wendell as well is like all these pieces are there. We love open source. We consume it already. So what 45Drives has to do is not necessarily reinvent the wheel and build all these pieces. They're out there, but we should be able to build a framework that makes them all work really, really nicely. And I think we do a great job at doing that kind of stuff already. We make use of the Cockpit project, right, for Houston. And so we integrate, and that's what we've been doing since the start, right? We integrate these amazing open source projects and open source tools, and we bring them to the masses and we bring them to the enterprise by supporting them with enterprise level support, right? And so I think that's exactly what we're going to be able to do on the home lab as well. So yeah, those are the big things that I kind of took from it for sure, and it's just been an amazing week.
And look, I'm just going to comment about Alan. Alan and I were talking, and we're saying that there's a series of videos going to come out, and we'll get some visuals to go with it. And Alan, we really want him to share that with our audiences, and because what's inside a hard drive is so cool. I did a lot of work on servo systems and to building and tuning servo systems in manufacturing machinery, experimental stuff back in the old days. But what they do in servo control to move ahead into this crazy little tracks is just so far beyond. But anyway, it's just one of the pieces of marvels in that.
It is getting pretty dynamic in there, and it's getting to the level that even I, after 30 years of being in the industry, now 40 years, oh my God, I'm dating myself, it is getting close to magic. They're beginning to use such small bits that I just shake my head. I should also probably mention that I'm no longer a Seagate employee. I'm kind of a little bit independent. My title is Director of Engineering Services, and I work for a storage-only industrial distributor. So we're basically a specialty distributor. We don't sell anything except storage. And we're a Seagate house. So typically we're going to cover your Nitro, your Exos, and your Skyhawk AI products. If you want to know more about that, you can talk with any of the folks at 45Drives. You can look us up on the web. Bless you, Jeff.
Sorry, thank you.
You can look us up on the web. It's HDSTOR, all one word.
I guess the last thing I'll say before I hot swap with Brett Kelly here.
Well, one thing I noticed is my leg has been rubbing up against my good friend Dave here for quite a while, and as much enjoyment as we have had sailing yesterday and now broadcasting live, Doug, we're going to need a bigger boat.
I've heard that line before somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere.
Yeah, I use the hotspot joke, but maybe you can use the high availability Jeff joke. Oh wait, I just stole that one too. You're pretty witty. I think you can get something. But no, like I said, the last thing I guess I would leave with is Another thing that I definitely took was some great ideas about improving our YouTube content, right? So we're always looking to make our content more consumable and better, and we got some good feedback on that for sure. And I mean, obviously we got the pros, so it's definitely a great opportunity to get some tips for making better content. So look out for some maybe easier to consume content, and hopefully better from the our production has always been top notch. It's the presenters that can always get better. So yeah, that'd be it. So thank you very much, guys. And Brett, come on in.
Thanks, Mitch.
Oh, man, cool.
Here comes the famous Brett Kelly on the camera.
Stop doing that.
We're just raising expectations for you here, Brett. No
Yeah, well,
pressure.
that's what's going on.
The second part of 45 Drives, raid 0.
Yeah. Well, I got a seat. I tried to climb in through the window
The only one
earlier.
who did the whole hot ones, almost the whole hot ones challenge. You skipped the easy sauces.
Well, we jumped right in, but that goes to Tim because I did one. I was like, that was great. We moved on, and then he was just like, where'd it go? I thought we were doing a challenge here.
You know, in Lord of the Rings, when Legolas is like, it's affecting me. That was after we got to the last one. He's like, yeah, I feel that.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll have to test against Tom. I know Tom likes really hot stuff too. I'll have to see how I stand up against Tom.
Anyway, I had to be here and represent our R&D engineering development team, but I am terrified of those sauces. But the other guys on my team, like Mark, particularly the guy who 3D printed and solved Tim's problem overnight, when I told him, talk to us when you get home. Yeah, like he'll eat these things and not even flinch. It kind of scares me.
Doesn't have sweat glands, I think.
I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I had to do the boys proud. So anyway, but yeah, I think, yeah, we'll recap first. You guys all said thank you so much for us having you up, but thank you for coming. This was really fun. Like Mitch said, I've been a fan of everyone for, well, the last few years and diving into it. And I think we all have a touch of imposter syndrome at times. And when you see other people who do the same things with you, or same ideas, same thoughts, and come and look at you with and oh, thanks, that's a good idea, and vice versa and stuff. It's just great. It builds everyone's confidence. It's fun to build the community, and it's wow, it was fun. It was a really fun weekend, end of the week. But everything that covered was well said. What I think I took the most from this is it fired me up to get right back into the home lab. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of how 45 Drive started. It was here, let's learn, let's play. We say home lab a lot, but like, home lab isn't the power users are in the home lab. That's where all the professionals go home and do the fun stuff, because you can't do it in your servers at work. Yeah, they get mad at you, right? So, coming and talking about the potential for all these home lab products, and at the end of the day, like, the product is one thing, but it's the platform. It's like, what can we do on top of it? And Jeff, I've lost track of our Jeff naming system, so you're both just Jeff. Craft Computing, Jeff came in and said, listen, cut the thing in half, do 4 bays, stick a motherboard on top. And I was like, I didn't even think of that. I was just going to try to rack mount it and turn it sideways. Wendell came in and said, yeah, look at all these various softwares and pieces you can use and bridge together, and it just kind of reawoke that fire of like, oh yeah, let's make something fun here. So we really see home lab as being like regeneration of that ecosystem of like, let's do some fun stuff, let's do some crazy ideas, let's build something, let's get the input from everyone else, let's put it back out. We here at 45 Drives, and just kind of by the nature of where we live, it tends to be the culture of we just love solving people's problems. Like, Tim came in and said, I ran out of places to put my SSDs. And we were like, oh yeah, we'll solve that right now. And Mark literally went downstairs and didn't do anything for the next 3 hours, printed the thing off, because he just wanted to solve someone's problem. And just diving back into this, thinking about the home lab and all the things we can do, it scratches that itch again. So we're really excited to dive in there, and yeah, I just can't wait to have some more fun. Yeah, I think that's all I got to say for now. You got any questions?
No, but you have a little work cut out for you when you get back, you and your group.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. But
sorry about that.
Said, it's gonna be fun.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a little bit of restructuring that's been planned for a while. We got to get off our butts. The whole timing on our home lab stuff. We have a machine that we showed everybody saw in here that's a 15 drive. Still high computing capacity in the relative sense, but scaled back in some ways to get to a price point. It's a little more manageable. It's up in the sort of a $2,000 price point, 15 drive machine, and that thing's pretty much ready to go. We got a clear map of where we can go, and again, our other division, Protocase, is the world's fastest manufacturer, and we can get, they need metal, they need supply chain elements to come in, they need assembly and electronics. It happens like that in days. So yeah, we're going to be very, very quickly, we're going to come out with something along the lines of what you brought. Yeah, and I think we'll do some YouTube on it too.
Do I get to name it?
Yeah, and we'd really love it if you put a NATO on the end of it.
I've got a name.
Yeah. Okay. We'll do that. Yeah, we'll talk about the design, and I can't wait to hear the name. Yeah, has it got Jeff in it? Yeah, that could be confusing.
Other Jeff.
So anyway, yeah, these guys can move like lightning, and that's going to happen. And we got to beef up our team a little bit because we have our ideas and sales channel, sales channel on it. It's going to be e-commerce because that's what everybody's used to, and the enterprise channel is expensive. So and taking orders manually is not what that community wants, I believe. Anybody has any other input and says, no, I'd really like to go through humans and wait.
Yeah, anytime you start addressing Home Lab and even SMB, if it says, please call for pricing, I'm not calling you.
Yeah.
We agree.
Yeah. So
components, like if you had a website that was just like, let me a la carte my components.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
People will do that, and it's just like you ordered a bunch of crap, and you didn't get a case. Yeah, I'm doing something. Oh, okay, well,
yeah.
I mean that's fine.
Yeah.
What does it hurt?
That's
Ron Swanson over here. I know more than you.
Well, that's where we got to go, and there's gonna be a store there,
yeah.
and trying to make it's a challenge in stores, and it just I think of my shopping perspective, it's hard to look at our own stuff because it's our own. I take my own commerce experiences, and I look at some of the stuff. We're sitting in a boat here. I do a lot of boat stuff and boat maintenance, boat alterations. Marine electronics are really fun, and you try to go shopping for them, and there's some bad experiences, some good experiences. We'll put that all together and figure out how we get that build your own experience, and then the support in this, the primary support. Support costs money. Mitch and the team that he and the whole bunch of them work on, they like to get paycheck. Because then they can buy Home Lab stuff, right?
So really, and what we're saying there is, there'll be a forum back again. We'll have playbooks and set recipes to install something, and then like here you can go off road here, you can follow our way, and have the community come back and say, here's what I was able to figure out how to do, and how can we get Open RGB running on the Super Micro boards, because we're going to do it. Because Tim's right when he says, yeah, it looks cool, but it does have a lot of utility to it. Like, it's nice when you can go look in your server and you can see, like, I've had the iPhone flashlight out many times looking for something, and kind of sucks. It'd be nice if you can have that. And does everyone want RGB? Maybe.
Yes.
Maybe even the enterprise does too. I don't know. But if you anyway, but it's all those fun ideas can start in this Home Lab small business, the fun experimental land, and things that work and bring utility and solve problems can germinate out into everything else.
And on the support thread, it would be forum-based support in this, because what makes economic sense, and the community. They're quite workable with the community, and they're going to solve most of their own problems, and we're going to learn a lot from the community in what happens there, and we contribute a lot. But our whole thing, and we sell stuff, we back it. There's a fundamental promise. I believe it's a fundamental promise. Yep. Everything you buy is fundamental promise. And the Home Labs thing, it's going to be big, strong, fast. What that means is context sensitive, and it will work. And if it doesn't work, we got to fix it, and that's it. And when you get away with software applications, obviously that's anyway, there's limits to it, but that's the beauty of an open model, open discussion forum community, is everybody can help themselves in that, and what I absolutely love about it. So we're going to make that all work. We're going to figure out how to make it work and watch that evolve over the next while. I'm just thinking about time here. I want to say, so there's a bunch of people sitting here. I wish we could pan and show you the people out here. So we got Joe Milburn on camera over here. Joe, you can't point. Stick your head in front of that camera. So, not gonna.
Don't be shy.
Show the hat off.
There,
Oh, he's got
there
a
he
different
is.
hat on today.
Yeah, and there's a couple other people here. I don't know if you can get them, but we have these three people in the back here are incredibly important on it. And anyway, Brandon Graham. So I'd say stand up and take a bow. So when we had this summit, we had something funny happen. Yeah, a little hand to Brandon. It's anyway, we had a technical failure, if you can believe that. So our 45Drives building, we lost our internet. Our technical infrastructure, we have 4 buildings, and we have buried fiber between 3 of them, and our fiber system gave up the ghost for some reason. And so all of a sudden, on the second day, the death of technical equipment that connects buildings. So next thing you know, there's some Cat 6 rolled across our driveway, and he got that going. And then we're sitting here in a boat, and again, I wish you could see our little setup here, and managed to get some wired internet just to make sure we had good connectivity. He got that going, got some wires running all around the marina here, and got us up and running on a boat. Chris McGean is over there, and Chris does like all our video stuff. He's in behind all the video, along with Joe.
We couldn't do it without him.
And social media. And social
we love
as
you,
well.
Chris.
Yeah. Sitting there quietly behind the camera all the time. He's got his headphones on there, keyboard, and controlling everything, and doing a kick-ass job. And we have Darren McNeil up there, who's a service team member and has done a wonderful job. And as well as being incredibly insightful and contributed to conversations, Darren has this remarkable ability to capture data when people meet. And really, it's exceptional. He does a really exceptional job in that. So they've helped us make this go. So thank you, folks. Really, really appreciate that. You guys are key to doing that. We have a couple other people sitting down here. Okay, one's Ashley McDonald. She's going to stick her head up. Come on up here and just poke your head in front of the camera.
Ashley.
Right up there. There you go.
Ashley's the hero of this trip.
Okay, so Ashley and Spencer's down here too from our storage architect. Come here. Put your face up there. So Ashley did all the hard work in organizing this thing, all the relationship scheduling,
airplane rerouting,
forming it, travel and everything else. And Lynette McDonald or Lynette Sampson worked on that as well. So that's it. And so here's what I want to do in this. We got a bunch of questions coming in there, I believe. And lots of discussion going on there. So what I want to do in the end of this is we're going to get these guys to relay us selected questions, and I think they've been answering some other stuff. Yeah, getting a few, and so we got some live questions. So we're going to open up to live questions, and we'll just kind of tail it off informally. As I said before, this is not NBC Network in 1978 with Johnny Carson coming on after. So we can just tail us on, and you guys had enough. You guys can tail off, audience, and if we get really tired and really need you got a drink already, but us other people might need a.
My drink's empty though.
Or if the rain starts, but his front comes through, but it's holding off pretty good right now.
Can I just give props to Doug for yesterday? So we went and sailed around the bay here yesterday. Someone lost a hat off of the top of the boat. And Doug said, well, let's do an overboard drill. And so we turned around and we found that hat and recovered it. So...
on a 39-foot catamaran under sail, we had a large downwind sail up, and it's a hard situation when you do that. And we managed to get it a little hat, and the hat happened to be the same color as the water too.
Right, it was a dark blue hat.
Yeah.
And we recovered the hat.
We just wanted to instill safety that if anything happened, Doug can pull anything out of that water.
That was one of the most impressive things I've ever seen. So, Doug, thank you.
We had to go back for that hat, too. It was not an ordinary hat. It actually had the official Major League Baseball logo right on the side.
Yeah.
Not that AliExpress stuff.
Yeah.
Real quick, I wanted to say something, too, to Doug. Like, it's not every day that, you can be in a room with the leader of an organization who spends the whole entire time there focused for multiple days. So I really appreciate that. It shows just how much you are interested and invested in the community, because I've been places where CEO pops in for a minute and then leaves, and you were there all day asking questions, and and taking notes. I really appreciate that. I know your time's worth a lot, and so spending those 2 days with us was incredible.
Yeah, that's a good point. And also, I wanted to mention to Tom Lawrence. Tom, I was really looking forward to meeting you in person, and I was so disappointed when I heard you couldn't be here with us. But thanks for being here remotely and participating as much as you could. I look forward to speaking with you again later. All these other guys have been very impressive and very enlightening. I think I learned more this week than I taught, and let's keep it that way. Let's keep talking.
Okay, shall we roll to thank you guys? And by the way, my time's worth no more than yours. You guys have given up days of your lives away from family and everything to come here, and really hope you enjoyed the community and the experience around here. Cape Breton's a really special kind of place.
We're really proud to show it off.
Yeah,
we're really, yeah.
Don't get many visitors around these parts. So what do we have, folks? Do we have any questions?
Yeah, one for Tim. Can I adopt you?
Tim.
So a question.
I asked Jeff from Craft Computing the same thing, if he could adopt me, but I don't know who that's coming from.
Yeah, it's from.
That depends on who it's from.
Yeah, if it's Wendell asking, yeah. Please.
All right.
This is the voice of Ashley from down in the Port Hall, the catamaran.
I asked for Jeff Geerling to ask this, but might not be as well. Go ahead, Spencer.
Yeah, sure. I'll just read off a couple then. We got a lot of questions about the Stornator Junior and if that can be adapted to start using ITX motherboards and actually use as a little desktop thing.
So there are a few standards. There's Pico ITX, which is about the size of the Compute Module 4 I/O board that's currently in there, and that was something we discussed, because if you could fit 2 ITX motherboards in 2 U of rack space with a heatsink and things, so if that can be adapted into that kind of platform, and probably the drives would have to be turned, because right now they're toaster style. Yeah. And if you try pushing that into a rack or setting something on top, you're going to lose all your storage. So, but the form factor, it inspires a lot of conversation, and like I said, I love that. So I think there's a future there.
4x4.
Yeah. Yeah. We also had a couple questions as far as rack mount versus non-rack mount for home labs, and just kind of general thoughts on where we feel that's going to be more relevant.
That's a Brett question.
Yeah, either Brett or me.
You jump in.
Yeah. So since Brett revealed a little bit of my plan for how I think 45 drives can enter this market, not everyone has a rack at their home, and if you do have a rack and you want to be as crazy as one of all of us, the AV15, the HL15 is coming out. 15 bays, standard ATX componentry, 120 mil fans. That's going to be a product. And I see there's also a question for pricing. I don't know if you guys are ready to talk about that, like in specifics as far as bare bones and fully built yet. But I was telling them, ignore rack mount, ignore your standards, ignore some of this stuff, but there's a couple things we can focus on, either Pico ITX or ITX standards. There's no reason you guys can't go and source or develop your own motherboards with either a mobile or a low power chipset that's not a Celeron 5105, so you can actually get a decent amount of power and do things like clustering and virtual machines and things like that. And still have that open kind of philosophy. I proposed a couple different form factors, either 4-drive or 8-drive, but with standard componentry and a much more aggressive price point than I think rack mount equipment can ever dream of reaching.
Mm-hmm. And you're bang on with that. And what the home lab will bring us to is we quickly were like, well, what do people want? And most of the people that we asked, the home lab subreddit and people of that interest group, were like, oh no, I want to put it in a rack, because they all have a rack. Yeah. But we see the home lab growing. Like, we're going to start with this HL15 product. Sits like a tower, or it goes in a rack. Low hanging fruit, great place to start. We can start to gauge the interest of everyone and everything. But the way I see it and the way it works now is like, it's not going to be hardware dependent. Like, there's going to be a little shim layer between whatever we end up building, both on like the home lab, say there's the home lab pro line, and then the home lab whatever, or maybe the home lab line gets a new name. But the point is it's gonna kind of, we keep using this word ecosystem, but I truly believe it, where it's going to be a couple different products. Like I have a rack mount server at home. It's one of our AV15s that I've also modified to all hell. And guess what? Don't really use it anymore because I don't have a rack because I got a bunch of racks at work and I just never got around to doing it, right? But what I actually want now, because I have the same problem that you guys all mentioned, it's kind of loud, and my girlfriend's like, this thing's too loud, please don't leave it on all the time. And I want to just put something on my desk. So what's going to happen is it's not going to be like, oh, it's only rack mount. That's what we do. No, there will be a rack mount. There will be another option, and the order of those coming out, well, we'll figure it out as we go. But there's going to be a clear kind of division of, I don't care which hardware platform we build, the kind of software stack and what the utility of it should all stay relatively the same. Because, like, I want to be careful about putting a custom board that's got an ARM CPU in it, and then everything else has got x86. I want to give you the ability to do that if you want to, but we also want to keep it standard enough that we're not like, oh yeah, no, but technically if you use that one, you can't use that software because that doesn't compile on that and stuff like that.
What do you got against Risk 5?
I don't know yet, but something.
Just a quick comment. We put the question out in the communities and Reddit and everything else, and the answers we got back relatively narrow. And they were tower and rack, and part of that's because what's out there is tower and rack, and attributed to Henry Ford. If I asked my customers what they'd want, they would have said a faster horse, right? And when we think, and it's that break in thinking, and with us, and I recognize that break in thinking, these leaps that happen, and it's something as simple as a form factor. We come from the enterprise world; it's all rack, right? And so our thinking goes in there, and I'm going, it's one of the things I knew in this, one of the reasons I wanted the outside input, and where are the leaps and where are the breaks on that? Because at the end of the day, it's just dumb metal. The rocket science is in the parts and in the hard drives, right? And so how do we get that and just make that as convenient as we can? And when we have Protocase, we have 30 mechanical designers over there. We have a mechanical designer, lead mechanical designer on the 45Drives side. And we can design stuff in days and just experiment, put stuff out low volume, and we hit stuff that works. And people say, yeah, that's cool, that works. Good, we'll stay there. Throw stuff at the wall, see what sticks, right? No.
And the last thing I'll add on that is, exactly, I don't mean to downplay all this, but it's like we're just connecting a bunch of hard drives or SSDs to a motherboard. Like, the form of the box that we put it in, well, we'll experiment with that. What I really got out of this is it broke the mold of thinking of, like, I got so locked into use HPAs to direct wire and get full line access into each drive. That's our bread and butter. That's what 45Drives did well. I need an HPA card. If I don't have an HPA card, I need a SATA controller on the motherboard. But then Wendell shows me a box that he's got that's got a nice little USB-C expander on it. Me and Josh, one of our lead electrical board designers, was just like, oh yeah, no, we can go SATA, we can go right in that USB. So it really broke that mold of, like, I just want to figure out how to plug a bunch of hard drives in a motherboard, and then the box it goes in, yeah, we'll figure all kinds of other stuff.
And the other theme that we've had that we've realized inside for a long time, there's this overshoot of capability in storage and compute. And on the storage side of it, like, we can get data out of our boxes. As I said, the NVMe is the king of that. It's like, so when you can get 64 gigabytes per second out of there, you're 640 gigabits plus. And you go, okay, how many 1 gigabit lines does that take? If you have 1 gigabit network and 640 NICs, 1 gigabit NICs.
Well, I only got one slot left available for
yeah. And you go, so, in Home Labs is a place for us to really do that, to take it down and take that down, respect bottlenecks in storage. And it's not from the hard drives to the motherboard generally. You have to watch latency one of the reasons we don't multiplex, because multiplex causes latency and causes driver issues. So we don't want to do that. But how do we get that, and how do we optimize it? And we got to build to a price point. Home Labs, price point. This hobby, we all have spouses that audit our financials occasionally, and we have limitations. So that performance thing, and figure that out. But it's still got to be big, strong, fast. So figure out how we put that together.
Yeah, and remember what Wendell said. The total works of Shakespeare is 1.35 megs, I think it was. Like, when it comes down to utilities, like, what are you trying to do? make something useful. You don't necessarily need.
Yeah. Anyway, great thread, great question, bringing that all up. How we doing, question crew?
Not too bad. There's a couple more. As far as, again, on the home lab, drive capacity wise. So we have the 15. Some people are asking for larger, some people are asking for smaller. Where do we feel that will grow? Some are looking for a mix of HD and SSD too, right? Units that have both capabilities.
You want me to speak to that?
I'll take it.
You want to take it first?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Question on. Yeah. Okay. You guys are showing us the 15 right now. Big question of how many hard drives or storage drives do we want to put in this thing? It's funny. We always call them drives. I never. Anyway, whatever.
OSDs.
OSDs. Jeez. Yeah. More jargon. How big? Go bigger. Go less. What's the right amount? Sounds like everyone wants the modular approach where they can choose if they want a couple hard drives, if they want NVMe's, if they want SSDs. To answer that question, we don't know yet. We're gonna find out. I guess we can
modular web store.
Modular web store, modular everything. Like kind of. I won't spend too much time. I'll kind of refer to the last answer I had. Is like we're just gonna figure out novel ways to plug a bunch of hard drives or SSDs or NVMe's into motherboards. A lot of the work we did with our new NVMe machine that we're bragging about is how big and fast it is we did build that modularly. That is UBM, Universal Backplane Management. The idea is that we can take one of those and plug right to that in a motherboard. We want to be able to take all these building blocks of pieces we've built and just, I don't know, figure out, like, make a little tower like Jeff mentioned, or we go rack mount. So I kind of go back to my last answer. Is like we can figure out any way to put a bunch of hard drives in a box. It's how do we connect it all up?
So you spoke in broad generalities. I'm going to be a little more specific, which is usually the opposite of the way we do this.
Yeah, it's true.
So it's 15 now, and why 15? Well, we have all the modules to put that together. That's why. Why is 15 come around? And I said I wouldn't make this joke, but 15's kind of non-binary, though. And 16. Why is it not 16? And because when you do the geometry for hard drives, and this is something our friends Backblaze, when things started, I'm going to go back to pre-2010, and that whole thing of rethinking storage servers. 19-inch rack mount, the width of a drive. And you end up with 15, and you try to shove 16 in there, and it just doesn't fit. You got to use the hammer to fit, and I think that it's over the acceleration.
Yeah, that's a very different hammer.
Good point. So anyway, that's where 15 comes from, and it's a good number to fit in that, and it's one of the reasons that breaking out a rack does something good. Anyway, you'll see 8. Let's get specific. I think there's going to be an 8 in our future, right, Jeff?
Yay.
Yeah, very much. You'll see 8. We'll see how people deal with that. The modularity that get to 4. 12, 4, 12, 8, I think. And then when we start doing SSDs in this, which don't want to make it sound like it's necessarily going to be a long time, we have SSD modules and how we fit those together. We love, on the enterprise side, building like our Stornator hybrids, having these nice modules so you can plug in SSDs and make them work with hard drives, because the two work together so well. We actually had a little discussion about tiered storage and about kernel and things like that and distros, and we have something called auto tiering that we developed as an open source project. Anybody wants to look it up? I think it's on
our GitHub. Yep.
It's on the GitHub, and it really, to make it really go fast, it's got to go into kernel. But anyway, that whole thing, make them work together. At a minimum, put your SSDs in, put metadata on SSDs. You can make storage go really fast. HDDs go awfully fast, and if you're on 1 gigabit, 2.5 gigabit, I think those conversations are moot. Okay, you start getting to 10 gigabit, and you start wanting to get latencies down. Yeah, you can do that. And say on our enterprise side, we run into that all the time. Home labs, well, you know what? Home labs, what do you need in home labs? What do you want?
What do you want?
And I always use the automotive analogies. And my 23-year-old son decided to buy a pickup truck with a turbo diesel with 450 horsepower and 1,000 foot-pounds of torque. And I said, "Do you really need that?" And he says, "Well, I go snowmobiling in Quebec, and I like to take my snowmobile, and I want my buddy to come, so I need that truck to get 2 snowmobiles there." once or twice a year, and I'm going, no, you don't. You just want that. Yeah. Why do you want that monster CPU and whatever? Well, because it's fun and you can do some really cool stuff with it. So we respect that. Hybrid machines gonna come. We got the modules. How do we fit them together? What's the form factor? What's the compute? And then trying to optimize that and fit in a price. I think that's what that like. There's a map will come out of this.
Yes.
But those are the pieces for the map.
Thank you.
Really good question right here. Someone wants to know what the bare bones. Someone wants to know what the bare bones price target around will be for the AV15 or the HL15 home lab, and then also Doug, if you could talk a little bit about why we're not doing the Me Too and where the big, strong, fast comes in to our home lab ethos with this. And bare bones, so like no electronics.
Yeah. Does anybody remember where we are in price point for that? We talked about a price point for the chassis with the wiring. The wiring's unique. It's
You gave me a number over the phone once, but I don't want to quote that because I'm probably wrong.
I'm just trying to refresh. I haven't looked at it.
I want to say it was right around 800 USD is where you were quoting chassis only or chassis and backplane.
Oh, that's got backplane and everything in it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'll just be clear on that. So yeah, 800 USD for the chassis. So what that means is you'd get a system that's ready to have a motherboard dropped in. There'll be a nice clean PCB with all your ATX power supply connections that you need into your drives, and and a nice backplane with all the drives ready to go on that. So yeah, that'd be about 800 USD. The next option we have up from that is it'll come with a power supply installed, and you can go one step further and just get a whole plumbed system with everything ready to go. The prices on those other two tiers will come as we nail the components down, but yeah, 800 USD is what we're looking at for that base chassis.
I think the couple grand for the fully ready to stuff installed. So that's the price points. Again, what we've done, this is our enterprise stuff that's been shrunk down and optimized a bit is what we're doing. We still have all those cost structures. And sorry, what was it?
And then just talk about the fact that we're not looking to compete maybe with
not competing with devices. Look, and our take, if you want inexpensive, I got corrected on this. I said inexpensive and adequate storage appliances. I'd still make the argument they're adequate. They fulfill the basic promise. You can buy a box that's made in China, lots of plastic on it, shrunk down to the absolute minimum for file storage, and you can buy those. They're out there in the market. They'll ship them to you from, wherever, and going after that. That's not it. This is a next level. This is, again, our positioning thing. This is the little micro car with a little tiny trailer behind it. They're adequate. They solve problems for people. It's practical transportation, and you can move some furniture in the back of your little trailer, right? And we're moving up here, and the 18-wheeler is our enterprise stuff. Too big to fit in most people's driveway, but pretty cool stuff. Lots of power, lots of horsepower, lots of capacity. And then we're trying to just find that sweet spot of something that you'll buy, made to repair, maintain, customize, standard as can be, and the real deal, big, strong, fast. That's what we're trying to create. And and we don't. Why would we not? Why would we do the other stuff? Because it's not us. It's just not us. We got to offer you some value, and doing what they do is.
And if I can speak one more time to the $800 price point, because I get this all the time. I'm the used eBay guy. I built an entire rack full of servers out of eBay gear. The $800 price point, if you look at new enterprise gear, that is bottom dollar for where a lot of storage chassis are at. You can't buy a system from Dell or HP with a motherboard or without a motherboard for less than $1,500 that does the same thing. And you have to remember, home labbers in particular, if you're going, well, why would I buy an HL15 for $800 as a bare bones chassis when I can get a bare bones Super Micro 846 15-year-old chassis for $300 on eBay? That 846 chassis was $1,500 when it came out. And we're talking about new products here, not used. They are different tiers of things. And some people, especially, again, wrapping back up into that SMB conversation, you're not going to sell a used item to a small, medium business as a professional service provider. And so 800 is a great price point.
That I want to add in, especially too, if you are going to compare against the used Supermicro chassis, which Supermicro makes great stuff. Yeah. Big fan. Our stuff is all built in the way that you can take that apart, fix it, man. Like, yeah, maybe you get your hands on an older chassis from us, and the rear plate's broken or something's dinged and you don't like it. Call, make a new part, send it out. You can take it apart. You might be able to 3D print something yourself too. We build these things with the right to repair in mind and the ability to take it apart. We're not riveting anything. We don't like rivets. We want you to be able to take it apart, put it back together. If you need us to give you a replacement part, we can work that out. If you want to go and make your own, you can do that too.
I mean,
That's
Tim,
another
you've
important
taken
to us.
your entire chassis, down to bare panels and back together.
If you saw it from mine, I swapped out the two 1200 watt power supplies with a single power supply, and then removed obviously the CPU fan and replaced that. I replaced a few things in it which required me to disassemble the whole entire thing, but I could because it was all screws. And I noticed all the nice wiring underneath and all the cable management you guys did. But yeah, it was simple enough for me. Never have looked at the instructions or diagram. It was honestly probably 16 screws and metal, which I appreciated. And yeah, I stripped one all the way down, bare bones, took the motherboard out, built it all back up, and you guys never got a call from me. It was all straightforward.
Tom from
Sorry, Tom, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was just saying the same thing. I believe in my video when I did one of the reviews, at least one or two of them I tore apart, and when we were taking them apart, it's like so easy. Even the other guys at the office are like, "You're gonna take it apart?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course I can." Look, and we swapped faceplates. You made some very custom faceplates for one of our clients, and swapping them out, no problem. It was easy.
Yeah, and I have to say, look, I deeply respect people that buy used gear. I love seeing our gear get recycled used. It's no particular direct benefit to us, but I love seeing it. And I've bought used stuff for most of my life, and because it's what I can afford, and I love it. And people that want to do that, whether it's with ours used or Supermicros used, and come join our community that's going to form around use of these things. Come on in. It's open. It's wide open.
Do got another good question here, probably for Tom, actually. Coming from that kind of IT consultancy background, right? The home lab server, sure, it's going to be good in the home, but do you think there's room for it in something like small, medium business, small office kind of stuff?
Oh, very much so. Very much. I see a lot of use for it because even small businesses, small little law offices and whatnot are starting to have data problems, and it's expensive to put it in the cloud. Just like you'd referenced, like you're going to talk about that overall cost of keeping it in the cloud, and having that availability and having some place to store it local for these people. And I completely see this as like something I'm excited because now we can go, cool. I mean, I love to sell them all a large system, but that's not always in their budget when they're a small office. But that is something they have a need for. Or actually, we're also seeing even in the small dental offices that, once again, they got to keep scans of everything. So they're having larger and larger data storage needs. So I think there's a really good fit in the small business world for this.
Yeah, we see, we've seen that. We sell to a number of small businesses, and, the big enterprise machines don't work. We have our 4-drive machine, which has gotten into a lot of places, and we're starting to see it with our SnapShield behavioral analysis, virus ransomware protection. So it's kind of drawn us in a little bit. So it'll be really interesting to see how it works, and having those other machines at the other price points, and still incredibly capable, totally able to saturate your network and make everything run. So anyway, yeah, cool place. I can't wait to see what happens in that.
Yeah, because that's going to compete with your AV15 now, right? Oh, sorry. I was going to say, like, that's going to compete with the AV15 then, right? So it's basically, yeah, you could possibly see people choosing that over AV15, right? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
solves the problem.
Yep. If it solves the problem,
Yeah, well,
it's good.
one thing I can say is I know you guys do a lot of custom solutions, down to one-offs on pretty much any product that you guys sell. And that's fantastic for businesses that might have IT support internally, know exactly what they need, know exactly what their problems are. There are a number of businesses around the world that they don't have dedicated IT staffs. Maybe they'll hire a local company. Those local companies can either contact you guys, get a custom solution built, or now that you guys are starting to sell bare bones parts that are meant to build your own solutions, that's an avenue for, you know, MSP style businesses to make their own custom solutions based on your guys' hardware. And I think that's equally as powerful.
I think it's going to be ideal for that. Yeah, the channel stuff, which we don't do right now. It's so much direct, and yeah, we do it cooperatively through channel, but yeah, and that stuff's much more product like. Anything else there? Question, crew?
Not sure if I got any. Mitch, you seen any over there? Any more questions? Good.
So someone asked those of us who attended LTX, how do we like the East Coast of Canada versus the West Coast of Canada?
Contentious.
Gosh, they're both beautiful, and I can say I've not explored either of them in the 3 days that I've spent in either of them to really give an opinion. I will say the beer over in Breton is a little bit better.
And I can say that the West Coast does not have the world's largest fiddle.
One more good question too, asking if Snapshot will be available on HomeLab.
That's a really good question. We have not spent any serious time thinking about that. So now I'm starting to think about it. Good. Thank you for the question. Yeah.
I will just say this. SnapShield requires a copy on write file system that can do snapshots, SFFS, ZFS, and it requires Samba. So take that information, think about it. We'll probably make something happen.
So, is that it? So I'm getting thirsty. I'm on the boat here, and it's like a good gin and tonic environment, and it's Saturday. And
beer's been empty for like 40 minutes.
Oh my God, 40 minutes! Oh.
And the rain's coming up too.
And the rain's coming soon. So anyway, good. So close it off, and just thank you everybody for participating and enjoying this. Tom Lawrence, thank you. Can't wait to get here in person.
Yes, I'm excited.
Other participants, thank you so much. And thank you, everybody from 45 who supported.